Hello, it's Marsha with Over the Hedge Home Decor. So I'm going to be making a Mardi Gras wreath. I'm a fleur-de-lis here. I'll be using as my sign. I've got this really pretty gold, green, and purple glitter ribbon that I'm going to mix in some other solid gold, green, and purple with to create the accents and the bow. Somewhere I've got a gold one of these. I don't know what I just did with it, but it's here somewhere. I'll find that. We'll add those cute little glitter picks in. And I have a couple of different kinds of mesh. I've got some partial rolls I'm going to use up of this purple foil mesh. And then this foil that has the gold, emerald green, and purple in it. So I'm using a 14-inch wreath frame, wire wreath frame, and I'm going to be adding in 12 Chanel stems, pipe cleaners, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to put 6 on the inner portion, inner 2 rows of this little frame. Just put it around 2 of those outer rings or inner rings and give it a couple of good twists. On the outer 2 rings, we're going to go right on this brace piece of this little wreath frame and add those. And so the one on the interior will be in between these 2. So if you want to, just go and I usually start with the bottom ones, I think, and or just go every other one. Anyway, you just want them evenly spaced. You want to pull them nice and tight when you're putting those on so they don't move around too much. If they do slide on the wreath frame a little bit, just push them back in position when you are adding your mesh on, and then they're going to stay in place after that pretty well. I don't normally use this particular brand of pipe cleaner. These are a little bit thin. I usually like a thicker one, but I did like the gold full glitter on these, so we're going to go with those. The little wreath frame, I believe this one came from like the Dollar Tree, but just anywhere you can pick up a wire wreath frame. So this one is, I believe, a 14-inch. Yes, it's a 14-inch. But I will make note on the different manufacturers make these wreath frames differently. This particular one has these little points that stick out on the brackets, and that could potentially scratch your front door. So after I make this, I'll go back in with some felt. I'll cut strips of 1.5 or so inches of felt, and I'm going to hot glue them along the outer edge of this frame after I get finished. That way I'll make sure there's no scratching to the door. All right, I have this done, so I'm just going to set that aside for a moment. And I'm going to begin cutting my mesh. Now, you could cut this mesh. I'm going to trim up this edge a little bit. You could cut this probably easier with the rotary cutter. I just didn't have mine handy tonight, so I'm going to cut roughly 20-inch pieces of this. And if I don't end up with 12 of this striped one, that's okay. I have some gold mesh that we can alternate with on this that will look very nice as well. I'm just going to see how far I get with this. You can even go as short as 18 inches on these if you want to on the smaller wreath frame. Would be fine. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. And I can tell I'm not going to have enough of that. So let me grab this gold mesh. And again, I'm going to straighten this up a little bit. I'll cut 6 more of the gold. And this will actually be for the second layer of mesh, the striped and this gold. We're going to use the poof method to create the first layer of mesh using the purple. And I will demonstrate that in just a moment. See, that's 4, 5, and 6. All right, so grab my wreath frame and this purple mesh. Let me trim up the edges on this one. I think I used this for the poof method before. This was just a partial roll. So this is 10-inch mesh. You could use 21-inch mesh, but this is what I had handy. So I'm just going to take this and drop it on the floor. And I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to fold under about, oh, I don't know, 4 inches or so. And then I'm just going to kind of ruffle this up in my hand. And I'm going to start with this inner section here. Just lay that in there and give it just a couple of twists. Then I'm going to measure out roughly 10 inches of mesh. I'm going to go to the next inner set of the pipe cleaners. And I'm just going to keep going right around, measuring out about 10 inches each time. And this way, that purple is going to be kind of peeking through when we add the other mesh on top of it, because this obviously is not thick enough to cover up all the wreath the way we're doing it right now. This is kind of a thin mesh that I'm using. You don't really have to measure that closely. You're going to kind of get a feel for this after you do a few of them. And you can just kind of tell how far out these need to go to make the right size poof. But measure it first until you're comfortable with it. When I get to that last one, I'm going to put it right back in the first one that I started with. And I'm going to go at an angle and come down to the bottom row. Now this isn't going to need to be a full 10 inches since it's a closer distance there. So I'm just going to give that a nice poof. And these are slightly further apart on the bottom. So I'm going to go about 11 inches on these poofs. A little bit more than on the inner ring. So you go from a 14-inch wreath frame, and this will end up making a 20 to 22-inch wreath when we're finished. I think I'm getting this twisted. Let me see what I'm doing here. You want to try to keep your selvage edges kind of at the bottom as you're bringing this around, and we're going to go back and fluff this out in just a moment when I get it all attached. I may have to switch to the other roll. I don't know if I'm going to quite make it with this one, but it's okay if I need to. I'll just splice it. And get this off the end of this roll. And it is gonna be basically one little section short. So I don't want that to look skimpy, so I'm gonna go ahead and just tie this one off here. I'm gonna cut off about 1 inch away from that twist tie. I'm just gonna cut that off, get rid of that extra. Get out my other roll of purple mesh. Sorry, I guess I should have already had this opened. There we go. And I just need a very small section of this. Same method of rolling over about 4 inches. I'm gonna put it right in that last one where we stopped. Give it a couple of really nice snug twists, and that's the key to this. You always want to keep those pipe cleaners nice and tight when it goes around the mesh to keep everything in place. Now, I'm back in that first one I started with on the bottom. Again, go about 1 inch out from where I tied it and cut that off. So, that mesh down there I'm going to pick up later. Right now, I'm just going to kind of fluff these out a little bit. Get a hold of those selvage edges and pull these apart. Get a little bit more coverage on this. So this will make this wreath be just a little bit fatter than it would be if I just put on the one layer. So now I'm going to alternate between the gold and the multi-striped one. I'm gonna curl up kind of like a burrito on each end. This is called a cruffle. I did not come up with this, someone else did, but I use this method. Curl it on both ends, then walk your fingers right up the middle so it looks kind of like a little bow tie. I'm gonna start at one of these inside ones and just place it in there kind of vertically, or maybe on a little slant. And the next one I'm gonna do will be with this foil mesh with all the bright, pretty colors in it. I can get it to curl under. Put it in the next one. And just keep alternating. Now, if you're doing all your cutting out and everything, you can expect it to take you between 45 minutes to an hour, especially when you're first starting out, to make one of these. So if you get tired, just stop and you can come back to it later. You might want to get everything cut out. After you watch this video, you can see what all you need to cut and watch which lengths. Oftentimes I'll watch one of these tutorials all the way through the first time, make sure I kind of understand it. Then I'll get my materials ready, go back and watch it the second time and just start and stop it when I need to. And that's a good way to learn from watching tutorials online. So I'd love it if you like and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Also, this will be on my Facebook page. I have an Etsy store where I will most probably have this wreath listed. I also sell at a couple of local boutiques, and I give classes on how to make wreaths and bows, as well as how to paint. But tonight, since it's the 1st of January, New Year's Day, I thought I need to get a couple of more Mardi Gras items made for my shop. Now I'm dropping down to this bottom row, and it's just going to be the same thing. I'm just going to keep alternating the colors. Now you could have done it to where all the gold was in the inside ring and the striped on the outside if you wanted to, I just tend to alternate mine because we're still going to go back and put ribbons in each one of these twist ties. So a lot of this mesh is going to get covered up with the ribbon. So again, you want to keep these nice and tight on these little twist ties because these do still have to get the ribbon added in. So we don't want to run out of room. We've only got 4 more of these little cruffles to make, and we'll be ready to make some decisions about which ribbons we're going to use next. Now, if you did not have a particular sign, you can just make a wreath with just the mesh and the ribbons, and if you've got some floral picks, put in some florals or other cute little attachments with it, little ornaments, all sorts of things you can add with it. And already we're getting a pretty nice looking wreath base here. Hope I've got my camera to where you can see it. I think this is the last one. I really like this striped foil mesh. It's nice and thick. It's really great coverage. And lots of pretty color in it. All right. So just that quickly, we have a really pretty little mesh base, and it is measuring about, well, actually it's going out to 24 inches if I go from absolute tip to tip, but 22 to 24 inches. So the next thing, excuse me for reaching in front of you, I gotta grab my ribbons, is to make a decision on my ribbons. Now, if I had enough of this, I would go back and add this in each one, but I'm afraid I don't have enough. So I think I'm gonna stick with my theme of gold and purple, mostly. I actually might use all 3 ribbons in these. Let me see how that's gonna look. So, whoops, I forgot. Rats, I forgot my ruler. Oh well. If you forget your ruler, you can measure out 12 inches and just fold it back on itself. And just keep going until you get 12 of these 12-inch pieces of ribbon. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So if you're a crafter and you had bought some gold ribbon to have on hand for Christmas, this is a really good time to use up some more of that gold ribbon in Mardi Gras and actually in St. Patrick's Day wreaths. It'll work out really well. So we're gonna go back and dovetail these in just a moment, but I'm just gonna set those to the side. And then I have this little glittery green ribbon. I'm gonna do the same thing. Just measure out 12-inch pieces. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I've actually got a little tool called a ribbon board that you just wrap your ribbon around. Makes it quicker than doing it this way. Oftentimes I'll just use a plastic ruler and just wrap it around that ruler really quickly. That works too if you're just needing 12 inches. Just some of my big wreaths, I might go 14 inches on some of these so-called ribbon tails. These are what we're gonna put in each of those little twist ties. So, do we want to add the purple too? Why not? I got plenty of purple. I should say, not I've got. I got. Okay, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, I'll put this to the side and I can start making the little cuts to create the ribbon. The dovetail on all this ribbon. So I take, since this is kind of thin ribbon, I can take probably 4 pieces of this. I fold it in half so that the straight edges are together. On this folded side, I drop down about a 1/2 inch, cut it up towards the top, and you end up with that little dovetail. So let me show you that again. Fold it long sides together. This is the folded side. I come down about a 1/2 inch, cut up towards the top, and gives me that little dovetail. So I'm just gonna finish doing these. And if you had thicker ribbon, you might just want to do 1 or 2 of those at a time. But I like to get these all prepped as I get ready to put them on my wreath, kind of like assembly line. In a minute, we'll kind of pair these up, fold them together, and that'll make, for me, it just makes it easier to put them on there. Instead of having to stop in between each one and get them organized. All right, that's the gold one. I'm gonna do the same thing on the purple and green. Now this is just 1.5 inch ribbon. The other was 2 inch, but the process is the same. Just fold it lengthwise. Always cut from the fold to the end of the straight edge there. These I'm only cutting about 3 of them at a time because it's a burlap type ribbon. It's a lot thicker than that other was, but it's okay to play with different textures. You don't necessarily want everything to be just alike. So don't hesitate to put like a sheer glittery ribbon with a colored burlap ribbon. That's perfectly okay. Kind of shooting those everywhere. So I'm sure that for some people that listen to me, my accent is really Southern, really strong. Even for some Southern people, my accent is really strong. I was born in Texas, but lived in Arkansas since I was about 5, 6 years old. So I do have a strong Southern accent. All right, we're gonna do these green ones the same way. This is why I said, you know, if you're getting tired sitting here doing this, just do some of this in stages. You don't have to feel like you have to just sit down and do it all at once, but I normally get excited with a project and I'm in a big hurry to get it finished. And anytime you're doing something new, it just takes you a little bit longer. After you've made a few, it'll seem so much easier to do. Like anything, just takes a little practice. Nothing hard about this. It's just, you know, there's certain steps you kind of need to follow, and you just take your time and enjoy it while you're doing it. I've always liked to make crafts of different sorts. I've done everything from quilting to making kids' toys to a woodworking shop, barn quilts, the painted wooden barn quilts, the wooden pieced together wood quilts, the painting. I do painting, wreath making, bow making classes. I've always liked to make stuff. All right, so that's out of the way now. So I'm gonna start with a piece of the gold, and I'm gonna layer it with a piece of the purple, right sides up, and a piece of the green. And notice these aren't all gonna be exactly the same size. That is perfectly okay. I'm just gonna kind of fold that up, set it to the side, and we'll have 12 sets of this here in just a few minutes. Try to keep the right side up. On some ribbons, it's a little bit hard to tell the right side from the wrong side, but I try to keep them stacked that way when I take them off the roll, so I'll know. But you can usually look at them closely and tell. This is all gonna make sense here in just a few minutes. Whoops, I was about to leave out my green. And there are multiple ways of making a mesh wreath base. There's lots of different ways you can do it. This is just one method that I use. You can also do this on what's called an elevated wreath work form, so that it ends up being about, the form itself is about 3 inches thick instead of kind of flat like this one that I'm using tonight. The style I'm making tonight will probably only be at most 5 inches deep, so it will normally work in between a storm door and your exterior door. That's what I have, and if I only put one layer of ribbon of the mesh on, it probably would have only been about 4 inches wide. And so I use these type on my front door because I do have a storm door, and it might smush it down just a little bit, but that's okay. It's wired ribbon, and it will come back to shape if you just fluff it out a little bit, so I don't worry about that too much. Same way with our bow. Always, if you're gonna make a wreath like this or bows like I make, you've got to have wired ribbon with it. Otherwise they're just not gonna stand up to the use that you need out of them. I will say, I don't think I'll ever get all the glitter out of my house. I've used so much glittered ribbon along the way. That's okay, kind of like glitter. All right, so I have my 12 little bundles now. I'm gonna take one of my bundles and open it up because I folded them right sides together. I'm just gonna scrunch up right in the middle, just so like I have a little bow tie again. I'm gonna take it and just put that right in one of those. Now this time I'm gonna twist it several times. And if I can find my little pliers, I'm gonna cut off the end about 1 inch or so long after I've twisted it on there good. And I take needle nose pliers, just kind of roll that under. Now on these this time, we're just gonna kind of fluff these out in all directions, like that. But I usually wait till I get all these on here and then I'll go back and kind of fluff them all around, because I'm gonna be kind of knocking them out of line. Again, just scrunch it up right there in the middle. Take it and put it right there. Twist that up really good for about 1 inch or so. Now, if you don't have needle nose pliers, just cut it off. These are thin pipe cleaners, so they could even be cut with scissors, and just use your fingers to kind of curl that under. Some people like the color to show, so they just leave theirs sticking right straight up. That's okay too if you want to do it that way, especially since these were kind of a green tinsel. It would be okay if they were showing. Wouldn't hurt a bit. So if you didn't like the green to show as much, you could have layered the purple on top if you preferred the purple to be a more dominant color in this. Doesn't really matter if you put all the inner ones or outer rings on first. Not gonna matter with this particular type of wreath that we're making. Sometimes it does, but not in this so-called wreath recipe. That means just the method of making this one. There are some that I make, commonly referred to as a pancake wreath, where you do the outer rows first completely, and then you do the inner row, because it kind of overlaps, but this one's not that way. This is also kind of a good beginner's type wreath. You can do this one relatively inexpensively. Some of the bigger wreaths that I do may have 3 entire rolls of mesh in them. They have 18 of these little twists on them, on those elevated wreath forms. So just getting a smaller one like this to start with is a really good way to learn the techniques and learn to choose your colors and your wreaths and your ribbons. Many people like myself also make wreath kits for sale, and that way you can just buy a package that has all the supplies that you'll need to make the wreath, and of course it's cheaper than buying the completed wreath, and you get the pleasure of making it if you're the type of crafty person that likes to do your own. And again, it's a good way to learn how to do it, and if you want to branch out on your own, that's perfectly fine. Normally you would need 1 to 2 rolls of mesh, some 10-yard rolls of wired ribbon. Normally you use 2 different ribbons for the ribbon tails, not 3. I don't normally use 3, but I just kind of wanted to include all these colors in this one, since I didn't have enough of my favorite ribbon tonight to use on this. I just did something a little different, but we're going to feature very predominantly that other really pretty glittered ribbon I showed earlier in the bow. So after the bow and the sign get on here, again, a lot of this work we're doing that we're working so hard on is going to be covered up. This is really just your base of your wreath. Your other attachments are going to go on it. When I first sat down, this was not exactly the wreath I thought I was going to make with this, but I think it's turning out just fine. We've got 3 more bundles, I think, to put on. Then I'll take time to kind of fluff these around so you can see what that's like. Let's see, did I remember to turn my glue gun on? I'm gonna probably need it to attach those picks. What? It's not working. Why is that not working? Don't I have it plugged in? Yes, I do. Have I glued my glue gun to the stand? Apparently I did. Oh my goodness, there's a first time for everything. Now, I just wasn't letting it sit in there far enough. So, excuse me, I had to get that going. Sorry for that delay. Started also to make this into a swag. But that's the fun part of this. You can just, you know, make a wreath one time, swag the next time, just whatever you feel like doing at that time. And I'm fortunate that I have a lot of supplies on hand, so I can pick and choose to do what I wish. Probably have too many supplies on hand, truth be known, so I'm trying to get some of them used up. Just now getting all my Christmas stuff put away. All right, so which one did I miss? So I missed one somewhere. What's that one? Oh, here it is. All right, last one. Now, again, this is where I would probably kind of like pull these to opposite sides of each other. Like pull the gold across, the green across, and the purple, just to kind of make sure that we're spreading all this pretty color out that we went to all this trouble to have ready. And these will, but while you're working at it, you know, you're probably gonna have to fluff these around 2 or 3 times. Once you get it completed and get it hung up, it's gonna stay right where you put it. It's just that when you're working with it, it's sometimes gonna get moved around where you didn't want it to be. I'm just kind of making an X pattern out of these. This one I seem to have gotten twisted around somehow. That way. But this just gives you an idea of how the coverage on this is going to be. They really fan out and provide a lot of coverage around your wreath. And see those little purple poofs in the back are showing through. So that's just kind of a rough fluffing up of it. But as you can see, it's turning into a really nice little wreath base here. So before I start making my bow, I want to see about deciding where I'm going to put my fleur-de-lis. I kind of think I want to put it over on the side. You can put it in the middle, on the other side, at the top, at the bottom. You know, I put it in all different places along the way, but I think this time I'm going to put it on the side because I've also got those picks I want to use. So I'm just going to take a couple of my little tinsel ties here that came with 2 holes already pre-drilled in it with that little green ribbon in it. So I, just to make it more stable on my wreath, I just drilled a couple of holes at the bottom, or if you have a punch, you could probably, this is thin enough, I probably could have just punched through it with my punch. There we go. Now, I gotta stand up for a second so I can get a better look at this and decide my position on this. I think right there is where I want to put it. Now, when you're putting this on, you want the ends of this tinsel to go through the mesh, not around it, because it's gonna provide better support for your sign. Make it stand up and look nicer. If you go around all the mesh, it's just gonna leave it kind of wobbly on there. So take the time to work that wire through there. Now, to start with, I'm not gonna tie it super tight until I get the other end done and look at it again and make sure I have it positioned where I want it. It's amazing how things seem to walk around when I'm trying to tie them on here. Let's see, I think I've got it. There you go. Now I'm gonna pull it a little bit more snug. I'll look at it. Yeah. You want your ribbon to be able to show out all the way around it. I think I'm gonna like that okay. I'll pull some of that ribbon over there closer to it. Now, on the back, I gotta make sure that I went around the wire, and I did. So you can see now that I'm getting more things on this back here. Another reason that I want to put that felt strip hot glued back here is just to make sure that nothing back here can hurt your door. If you don't have felt, you could use some old ribbon, some old fabric, just something to provide a little bit of buffer for your door. All right, now it's time to make the bow. I think I'm just gonna do one bow. Sometimes I have to put 3 small funky bows on there. Sometimes I use just one bow with long tails, and I think that's what I'm gonna do on this one. So I'm gonna make, this isn't a huge wreath, so I think about 16-inch tails. I'm using an easy bow maker. So I put that in there with the 16 inches down towards me. I twist it so that my pretty side is gonna be on the top when I turn this around. I'm measuring out to about 6 inches on my bow maker. I'm gonna twist it. So now the bottom side of the ribbon is showing. It's a little hard to tell on this gold, and the top side is the right side, the pretty side. So I'm gonna make 2 loops on each side, and they're all gonna be at about 6 inches. Now you don't want to smash your loops down flat when you're making them. Let them kind of stay up and poofy. On that very last one that I made, I just pushed straight down. I'm just using the end of the tail to measure it off. So now you could just put one pretty bow just like that on it if you wanted to, if you didn't have a bunch of different ribbons like I do. I think next I'm gonna go in with some of the green. And I'm gonna measure from that 16-inch tail, use it as my guide to measure. And this time I'm going to do 5.5 inches and twist so that bottom side is pointing up. Go out 5.5 inches and push straight down, because I'm only going to do 1 loop on each side of the green, and I'm going to measure off that 16-inch tail and cut it off. Now I'm going to use some of the purple. And it's not uncommon for me to use, I use a minimum of 3, usually 3 different ribbons, but I sometimes use 6 or 7 ribbons in a bow. It just depends on what I'm doing with them. We're going to add some purple in here. So that was 5.5. These are going to be at about 5. I'm going to put 2 on each side of the purple. I'm going to give it that twist so the bottom side is showing. When I fold it over, the top side is going to be the pretty side. Twist. On the last one, I don't have to twist. Just pull it straight down. And again, if I didn't have this other ribbon I wanted to use, this would be perfectly fine to use this bow. It would match just great. But I do have this other that I would like to use. I kind of changed my mind in midstream again. I'm not using as much of this as I thought I was going to use. But since it will be the one on top, I think it will be fine. It's still going to show. Now, this nice long tail. This is a really nice quality ribbon too. And this one's going to be a little bit shorter at about 4.5. Kind of an argyle, do you call that design? That's diamond shapes on it. And pull that right straight down. I'll cut off about a 10-inch piece to cover up the middle. I'm almost out of this ribbon. I probably wouldn't have had enough to do any more with it anyway, because that's not very much of this left. Now, I need a zip tie. Get one that's a little bit longer. Now, I'm going to make sure that the little flat side of my connector is pointing up. I'm going to go underneath all of my ribbon. On the right-hand side, come up on the left-hand side. I'm going to connect that. And I'm going to get a little pipe cleaner ready. As I pull this off, I'm going to kind of push together with my thumb and forefingers. I'm going to twist this around to the back. And before I tighten it, I'm going to slip a pipe cleaner in there. Now I can give it a good tight tug on that, cut off the extra. And now I can start working on covering up the center part, because we don't want that zip tie to show. So I take this little strip of ribbon, I fold it to the middle, fold it to the middle again. So I end up with this pretty little strip of ribbon. I'm going to put it right there in the middle. And now I've got all the workings of that covered up. Just going to flip it over. Make sure my pipe cleaner is still on either side. Just give this a couple of ties here on the back, nothing fancy. Just pull it good and tight. This glittered ribbon is stiff and it doesn't want to pull very well. Good grief. All right, it doesn't want to pull very well. I'm going to cut off the extra. Now, some people, for extra security, like to go in and just twist their pipe cleaner around that. It's not going to go anywhere, but you can if you want to. So now, let's move that out of the way. and decide where I'm going to place my bow. First of all, I'm going to pull these tails down where I want them. I'm going to put that up pretty high and pretty close to my fleur-de-lis. I'm going to trim these tails back here in just a minute. So, take these, and again, I'm going to go right through that through the mesh, down to the frame, the wreath frame. Working that down through there. There we go on one side. There's my other side. Make sure I only went around one wire. I want to actually go around 2 wires to give it a little bit more stability. Now, you don't want to pull this so tight that it pulls your whole ribbon down into the mesh. We want it to stay put, but we don't want it to be so tight that it looks like it's all puckered down in there. I'm going to tighten just a little bit. And I'm just going to twist that off and curl that under. Now, I will probably just line up these tails and go ahead and dovetail them. Try to get them all. Now, you don't have to have them the same length. You can have them staggered, and each ribbon can be a different length. That's perfectly okay. And on this one, instead of dovetailing it, I'm just going to curl it up a little bit. Let it have that little bit of curl going on with it. Do the same thing on this other side. I hope y'all are able to see what I was doing. I may have had it too close to me. Probably should have dovetailed that other end of that full one. And roll that back out. That way the customer can leave that long if they want to, or they can curl it up to give it a little bit more, a little different look there. Because this is a nice ribbon to do that with. It'll hold its shape really well. All right, and you could stop right there after you shake out your pieces you've cut off. But I have these little picks. Let me get up and find my gold one. I must have dropped it on the floor. Yep, it's on the floor. Let's grab that. My glue gun, and we're just about finished. Let's see, where do I want to put these? First of all, I need to get, these came from Hobby Lobby. I need to get the price tag off of here. And of course, these are going to be some stubborn ones. There we go. Come on. And the purple one, I need to clean it up a little bit. All right. So I am probably going to just put these, well, if I find a place around my bow is probably where I'm going to put these, hot glue them in. I just kind of like to place them first. Make sure I'm going to like where they're at. Bow fluffed up a little more. You want to open up all these loops. And the green one, I don't know if that's the best place. I don't know if that one's going to show up very well or not. This one. I don't think I want him there. I think I'm going to cut him off, put him up in the bow, so it'll show up a little bit more even. Like that. There we go. So I'm going to hot glue those in just a minute. I won't take your time to do that. But this, other than a little bit extra fluffing out here on my ribbon tails, this is what this wreath is going to look like. So again, thank you for joining me, and subscribe, and I'll be weekly putting up some new tutorials. Sometimes there'll be a swag, a wreath, it might be a painting, different things that I craft and do. So please come back and join me. Thanks.